about her background and talk to us about being the curriculum coordinator here. Dr. Stover.
I have worked in education for 28 years, and I started in 92 at Enterprise High School. I taught government economics, psychology, and sociology, and was advised, because at that time I thought I wanted to become a curriculum instructor at the university level, that I needed to get some metro experience. So I moved to Gwinnett County, Georgia, and taught in Atlanta area for a year. Met my husband and then moved back. And so taught at 8th grade history in Georgia and 8th grade history in Alabama for a total of 6 years, and then became an assistant principal at a junior high school, 7th and 8th grade school, and then became a principal at an elementary school in Gulf Shores. And then my husband's job brought us up this way, so I was principal at an elementary school here in our district, Kennedy Elementary, for 10 years, and have been here at the central office for the last 2. Served for nearly a year as the special ed coordinator, and have served for a year, approximately a year, as the curriculum coordinator.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being with us. What would you say, and especially now that you have another job to prepare for, what's been the most challenging part of being curriculum coordinator?
Just the volume of initiatives and compliance requirements in my role, because I'm curriculum, but I'm also career tech, and so there's a good bit of compliance that's involved with that. Also, because the way our district has arranged it, we're kindergarten through 12th grade curriculum. Instead of having more than one person, I'm one person doing the elementary and the secondary. And, I'm glad that I taught secondary, because at least I have some sense for that. I know elementary just from having run an elementary school for years. But just the sheer number of initiatives and things that you have to keep rolling. I will say another challenge is, when you're at the building level, you're used to making things happen. Things are happening. When you're here at the central office level, someone said that you become a recommender. You don't make things happen as much as you recommend things to happen. And so you don't see the fruits of your labor quite as readily.
Is that frustrating?
It can be.
Somebody who's used to doing things and my friend that I told you I interviewed before, Leslie, said she said, I feel removed. If I were in the school, I would feel and see more of what I was doing. So she echoed that sentiment.
Yeah, I likened it to cooking. I've got all these pots, and they're all simmering, but I'm not serving very much up.
Right.
I'm just things are simmering. So
as long as you don't boil over, you're okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well, what have you found the most rewarding?
Well, I tell you, to me, the most rewarding thing is being able to see the full continuum of what our kids are learning. Being at the elementary school for as long as I was there to start them out. And I loved seeing them walk in the doors, kindergartners, and walk out the doors, 4th graders, and the growth that I saw in between. But being able to go to the high school now and see our kids, my kids from Kennedy, who have now found a path and have grown and matured and are about to launch, that is very rewarding. Just being able to interact with those kids and interact with you guys at the high school as you help them kind of tie up in a bow this K-12 experience.
And I think that is important. And I think, I don't have any elementary experience, and I think that it would help if we somehow had more, training together, but not really professional development, if we just knew each other better from the different levels. I have a few friends that are elementary teachers, but not that many. And I think, and not here, we haven't been here that long. And so I think that when I worked in Demopolis, where I was from, where I grew up, I knew all the elementary teachers because I'd grown up with all of them,
Right.
And so I could see, and I had children in elementary school, and so I could see what was going on there. And I think that if we could somehow link elementary and high school and junior high teachers a little bit more, it would be beneficial to us, because like you said, we don't get to see the beginning and they don't get to see the end. And so it would be really, really nice, I think. How do you spend the majority of your workday? You talked about your pot simmering, so what do you do the most?
Well, it's really hard to say at this point because since January, I've been doing lots of different things. Now, prior to January, when Krista Bryant was still here and I was primarily just doing curriculum, it was really making sure that people's needs were met. So if it was ordering materials, if it was meeting with a group of teachers to help develop a process, like when we sat down and met to develop a process.
Which we really appreciated very much, and I think it has helped tremendously.
Well, good, and that's the stuff that I love, is being able to sit down and meet with groups of teachers and really brainstorm what are the issues, how can I help facilitate any resolution, to whatever issue. So that was a lot of what I did. Now, I'm just doing a little bit of everything. We're being, State Department monitored this month, so there's lots of pulling together documentation for the State Department to come. Now, there was some of that in curriculum too, because the counselors fell under my supervision, and there's a good chunk of monitoring under counseling. The Career Tech, there's a big chunk of monitoring under that, so that takes a good bit of time. But now I'm also, as the assistant superintendent, kind of the grievance person. So almost every day I have, a parent who's dissatisfied, at least one parent that's dissatisfied, that I, have to make contact with and help them find resolution. I'm dealing with a lot of personnel related things, but because we're a small district, we really do wear a whole lot of hats. Even if we were fully staffed, we would still be wearing a good bit of hats.
Well, what do you think the biggest way you can help teachers as a curriculum coordinator is? Like, what is your biggest mission, I suppose, as far as that goes with teachers?
I think probably it's twofold. Number one, listen. To find out what's going on, what's happening in the classroom, because it's important as a curriculum person to acknowledge, especially someone like me, that I have not been in the classroom in quite some time. So I don't have good firsthand knowledge of the struggles and the needs and how the kids are receiving the curriculum, what modifications need to be made. So I need to listen.
Okay.
I need to listen to understand. And then I need to help work with teachers to make sure that we are instructing in a standards-based way, that we're not just kind of doing our own thing, but that we have adopted and are following through with standards-based instruction.
Okay. What do you think, and that makes me think of the new math changes, how do you see that impacting our curriculum across the board? Excuse me.
Well, it's going to bring several things. In fact, some things I hadn't even thought of. I had a meeting yesterday with our athletic director, who said, hey, I had kids that were coming in with 2 credits to the good in 9th grade. Now they're going to be coming in with only 1, and that's if they take that business technology applications course, because the Algebra 1 in 8th grade is going away. And I hadn't even thought about that wrinkle, that his athletic periods were going to be affected because those kids are coming into 9th grade with only possibly 1 credit. So I guess we learn all the time about exactly what's going to happen. Because seniors are going to have to take a math, that's a big change. And all of them having to take Algebra 2, that's a big change. Combining all the content, supposedly, of Algebra 1 into 7th and 8th grade math, I'm curious about the mastery and how that's going to play out.
Right.
And then next year, all of our math teachers, the math department decided we would go ahead and bite off the geometry piece. And so next year's going to be our heavy geometry year before full implementation of the course of study in the subsequent year.
So just a lot of rearrangement, a lot of change.
Yeah, and then training everyone on the new course of study and the rationale behind the changes, so that they can approach teaching it with the right emphasis.
Right. And that's just one department, one subject. And
Yeah.
So you have to wait and see if that comes to everything else. And so that kind of leads into this, like with an integrated curriculum. So horizontally, I think we probably do okay, but vertically, they're going to really have to work together. Or they 7th, 8th, 9th, that will require
Some coordination.
different-
Yes.
yes.
And currently, we are working with one of our AMSTI specialists, Nick Fink, who is doing some vertical meetings for our middle grades math. And we really started that before the course of study was even adopted, because we saw it as an area of need in our standardized test scores from 5th grade through 8th grade to have some continuity and some similarities in approach and in values, between that 5th through 8th grade year. So we have met twice, and we've got another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. We're meeting the afternoon after school and trying to take a good hard look at the new course of study and develop some tiered instruction with those course of study standards, so that we know how to, if somebody doesn't get it at this level, what can I drop back to?
Right. And where can they go, and what can we do for them?
Yes.
So, how do you monitor? And we talked a little bit about this, but monitor and assess the instructional programs. Like, what will you do? Let's just use the math as an example. Next year in the spring, I expect after you've had a year of implementation, you'll have monitored through the year, and you'll have to assess how it's gone and make some changes. What will you do to accomplish that?
Well, we use a lot of the same, I guess, formative assessment tools that we have access to.
Right.
Global Scholar is one that comes to mind, because we can, and I didn't realize this until this year, but we can assess kids all the way through 11th grade using Global Scholar. Now, currently, we have been doing 9th and 10th grade, but that's a way for us to get a baseline and then see if they've mastered more. And we do the same thing at the elementary level. We'll use the STAR assessment, the STAR math assessment, look at the beginning of the year, look at the end of the year, do some comparisons of growth, and see if we can determine. And the great thing about Global Scholar is it does drill down to the standard.
Okay.
And so you can say, okay, attained or not attained on those standards, and see our weak areas and our strength areas.
That's good. Well, and I suppose that kind of really answers the question. So STAR would be a diagnostic tool. Global Scholar could be a diagnostic tool as well. And then I guess teacher-made things. Sorry. And so, we've been increasing our Chromebook usage, and we've gotten carts, and we've been implementing that. As curriculum coordinator, do you see us, and that made me think of this with all the things the kids have been able to do, and all everything that's on the computer, the Global Scholar and everything like that. Do you see us going one-to-one, maybe even just at the high school level to begin with? Or how do you see tech impacting not just the math change, but all of this? How do you see, or integrating with what we're trying to do?
It really should be integrated, and it should be a part of the curriculum, but not the total delivery method of the curriculum.
And that makes me so happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, because our students need the human connection. If they don't get it from us during those hours, that 7:50 to 2:50, many of them don't have any opportunity to dialogue with anyone else outside of the school. If we're not using discourse and dialogue as part of our learning environment, then we're really doing them a disservice. And that's that teacher-student relationship. It can't substitute for that, nor can it substitute for the wisdom and discernment of the teacher. Because once you get eyeball to eyeball with a student, you can figure out what they need from a ground level. I mean, are they getting their basic needs met? Are they getting their belongingness needs met? Then we can start talking about, are they receiving the curriculum that we're offering?
Right.
But if the student's sitting behind a screen, we're not getting that information.
Right. No, I agree completely. Let's see. We talked about that. I can't read that. What is, I think this says, what's the greatest,
Accomplishment?
what is the greatest something to accomplishing goals and objectives? Maybe the greatest obstacle or the greatest, I don't know.
Factors that
Okay,
interfere, maybe,
Yes.
with achieving goals and objectives. Well, time. I think that's our biggest factor. Every moment, it seems like there's 3 or 4 things that need to be accomplished, and we move at such a fast pace that, and there's so many things that are vying for our attention as educators. You know, whether it's me in this position or you in the classroom with kids, there's so many things that are vying for our attention. Bless you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Try not to have a coughing fit and sneezing fit. Okay, and you're not gonna catch anything from me. I
Okay, no,
promise.
it's okay.
I wouldn't have come.
But sometimes we need to prioritize the time that we have because we are so inundated with demands. And that's an interference. We don't have enough time. And then sometimes we have a hard time saying, okay, this is not that important. Let's focus on
Right.
what we can devote some concentrated time and attention to.
And what would you say, like, what your biggest takeaway so far this year about what, I don't know what's the way to ask it, what we've accomplished or what we still need to accomplish? You know, what would be your biggest piece of advice, I suppose, to anyone that is doing this? What should they aim for? I think I just asked you 4 different questions.
No, well, keep the main thing the main thing. Teaching and learning is the main thing.
Okay.
That's the main thing. And all of this other stuff can clutter, and just like with the time prioritizing,
Right.
it can clutter your mind and it can clutter your focus. So being able to push those things that are not directly related to teaching and learning to the side so that we can accomplish more with our kids and get them where we want them to be instead of waiting in the minutia of the present, because we sometimes do.
I think so. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time and your willingness to talk to me, and I'm sure I'll be asking you lots of other questions about lots of other things.
You are so welcome. I'm glad to.
Well, thank you so much.